we are going to talk about the 13 books that I read in January. I love utilizing my library with the Libby app, but I'm trying to be better about going in person and checking out physical books again. So I'm proud to say that 4 of my 13 books were on my physical TBR. Otherwise, I was checking them out physically from the library, utilizing the Kindle Unlimited subscription I pay for, or just checking them out through an ebook on Libby. So I'm going to talk about all of those books and how I read them, because I think it is important to see that you can read so many books through your library. The first book I read was Daddy Issues. I gave this 4.5 stars. This was such a pleasant surprise to me. I really enjoyed the contrasting characters. We had an older male who was a father to, I think, like an 8 or 9-year-old girl. I love that he was someone that at this stage in his life isn't afraid to just say what he wants and how he feels and what he's thinking. He's done with the games. Then we have our younger female character who's in her like mid to late 20s, and I think so many people in their mid to late 20s are going through what she's going through, where she was graduating at a time that COVID was existing, and it kind of halted and ruined the trajectory of her career and life, and just kind of figure out what those next steps are, especially in a niche field, can be so hard. And I love that she was someone that was afraid to take a leap. So you have these very contrasting characters that just worked, and I had such a good time with it. The next book I read was The Sirens by Amelia Hart. I also gave this 4.5 stars. I checked out the ebook and audio through Libby, but I believe it's also on Kindle Unlimited. I first read Wayward by her, which was all things witches, and structured like Barrier Bones and Midnight Soil, where you have different characters from different points in time, and you're trying to figure out if they connect or how they connect. That was similar to this structure. I really enjoy that. I find it so fun because it's like these mysteries within a mystery, and you're like, how is this all going to tie together? I really enjoy the way she storytells and the ambiance and vibes of her work because it's very similar to Adrienne Young, which I also love. I also love how she includes the resilience of women in her novels. I just can't wait to see what she puts out next. And then I picked up my first 5-star of the year, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I feel like my Goodreads review just did it justice. I could not do better than that. So, we know that I love to read about the human experience, and with this book, it was something that grew because I was just intrigued in the beginning, but by the end, I was flooded with so many emotions and thoughts. I think I just love a book that reminds me what it is to be human and what it means to live a human life. I wrote that I felt every part of Addie walking through life, creating so many memories, yet every interaction forgotten by the other person, to live 300 years of that. And then one day someone says, I remember you. Like, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. I just feel like Addie and Henry's story was peak human experience, and I can't believe that I live in the same time period that this book was written. The next book I read was Seeing Other People. I gave this 4.25 stars. I also had an unexpectedly good time with this. I just wasn't sure which direction this book was gonna go. While we have this overlying topic of grief, I feel like there's a lot of comedic relief throughout this. We have our female main character that is being haunted by a man she went on one date with, and she's teaming up with our male main character who is being haunted by his fiance that died 5 years ago. Now, while they're both trying to figure out how to help their ghosts move on, we have the contrasting element of the female main character being like, listen, we went on one date. You've got to move on. Like, I want you to move on. And our male main character is more fearful of his ghost moving on. Like, he doesn't necessarily want his fiance to move on. So you have that dynamic going on, but I love watching that quest unfold and bringing our two main characters together and figuring out how to kind of move on themselves and to live their life. I was shocked by how much I cared about our characters in the end. I was uncontrollably sobbing. We had a lot more on screen with one of the ghosts than the other, and so forming that connection with them, unexpected. Next, I listened to Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. I ended up not rating this because it just didn't quite feel right. This is a fiction story following a 17-year-old main female character having a romantic relationship with her teacher. I feel like this book obviously gave Jennette, babe, are you okay? Because we know that she is taking personal experiences into this book, and so it just makes me want to give her a hug. So while many young women reading this probably haven't gone through this situation, I think that there is something any girl or young woman can take from this, and that is, don't do something for a man. Never. I know I'm not alone in my high school and college years of just wanting to appear perfect for a boy I had a crush on. Whether or not that was dressing a certain way, saying a certain thing, staying up late to talk with them, or whatever it may be, like I did that to keep their attention. No, I'm glad I have mostly grown out of that. I'm sure I still have tendencies that we will work on at a later date, but I just think it was way worse in high school. I think I understand a lot more of my self-worth and how when you go on dates now, like you want to go on a date to see if you like them. You're not going on a date to ensure that they like you. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I wanted to take from this, and that's a powerful message in and of itself. But otherwise, this book is very uncomfortable. It's not meant to be a pleasant read. If you didn't enjoy it, there's valid reasons why. The next book I picked up was The Beautiful Maddening by Shay Earnshaw. I actually picked this up as a physical copy from my library. I really enjoy Shay Earnshaw overall. I gave this book 3 stars, so this was definitely my least liked book of theirs. They are a YA author, often putting out these like standalone fantasy novels. I think this one definitely felt more of the emphasis on young adult, while other books I've read by them, kind of the emphasis was on adult where they were in their like early 20s. This, I think our main female character was 17, and I felt that. And that's just something I have a harder time connecting and enjoying to at this stage in my life, but I still had a fun time with it. It is about a quirky family curse where during like the tulip season especially, anyone that looks at this family with the bloodline, specifically the sister and brother that we're following, they like have this instant infatuation and like they just love them. They can't help but love them. So you are watching our main female character kind of graduating and figuring out how to just get out of this town and move on while her brother is more okay staying. But then she finds a boy that doesn't appear to be kind of affected by this curse, if you will. And so you're kind of following like why and what that story is and kind of what is our main female character gonna do. I love a good standalone whimsical fantasy story, so 3 stars is still a good rating. I had a fine time, it just wasn't great. And then we officially entered back into my thriller era. I listened and read Kill for Me, Kill for You. I checked out both the audio and ebook from Libby, and I gave this book 4 stars. This was the perfect book to get me back into the thriller genre. I loved it. It was so intriguing. I was questioning everything along the way. This was my first Stephen Kavanaugh book, and I just really loved his storytelling, and I want to check out more of his work. Now, I went into this blind, so I don't really want to talk about the plot, but I can just say that I was questioning everything. I was intrigued the entire time, and even by the end, I was just like, what just happened? What did I read, and could I have reread it and seen those clues along the way? This was an incredible thriller. The next book I read was I Who Have Never Known Men. I gave this 4.5 stars. This was such a cool read. I think my review on this on Goodreads is literally like, I'm gonna be staring at a wall for the foreseeable future. And that was exactly true, because this was incredibly thought-provoking and it made me just sit and want to be like, what happened? What was this? I think many people may not enjoy this book because the ending is not tied up in a bow. You don't get all of the answers. And even throughout the book, it's just very confusing. And I think a lot of times you could be questioning like, what am I reading and what's the point? To me, the point is making you think, like, what would humans do if they were taken out of their normal day-to-day? If they no longer had a sense of time, a sense of duty, a sense of obligations to anything, like, how would they act alone or in a community-esque setting? Because you are following, yes, our main female character, but really this group of, I think it's 39 or 40 women that are held captive underground. No one really remembers how they got there, and one day they're able to escape. And so you're following what happens after they escape. And just the way that our main female character is thinking, and you're seeing that, incredible. And just a sense of community amongst the women, incredible, but very unique. I love this book. If you want a book that's gonna make you think, this is the one. The next book I picked up was Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. I checked out the physical book from my library, but then I believe I checked out the audio from Libby. I gave this book 4.25 stars. This was such a unique read to me. I love the beginning of the synopsis. It says, a former slave fighting for justice, a reclusive warrior who no longer believes in it, and a dark magic that will entangle their fates. That's all I'm going to speak to the synopsis. I just had a really fun time with the dynamics of all of our characters. I loved our female main character that was just resilient and didn't want to give up, but yet she needed this element of training. She had very little experience in a lot of things, and so I love that she was just someone that wanted to learn and was willing to make all of the initiatives. And then of course I loved our broody main female character, but I love that he wasn't someone that was just broody the entire time. He was someone that had his reasons but also wants justice. At his core, he wants justice. And so as much as his experiences have made him someone that no longer believes it exists, I think when someone wants it at their core, you just need that one person to spark and bring it back. And I think at this day and age, that's exactly what we're seeing. And so I loved reading this right now. The next book I picked up was The Second Death of Locke. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I checked out both the ebook and audio from Libby. This book felt so refreshing to me. I just had such a fun time with the overall plot of like the political intrigue, what's going on with the kingdoms, the kind of mystery element, the magic system was cool. I really loved the romance plot. Like, I just had such a good time with so many facets of this story. I went into this pretty blind, just understanding that we had two main characters that understood a secret. What were they willing to do in order to keep that? But then I didn't understand the whole magic system of mages and wells. And I think knowing that, I might have picked it up a little sooner because that was so cool. I haven't read a magic system where you need two people to use it. You have one person that can source all of it and the other person that can actually use it and put it to use. And I just found that so interesting because without each other, like, nothing can be done. Who cares if you can use the magic if you have no magic to pull from? And then who cares that you source all this magic if you can't actually use it? So that dynamic was really cool, and I just loved the political aspect of it all. So this book wrapped up really well. You got some conclusion to things, but you are definitely left with enough that you're like, what is book 2? What's coming next? The next book I picked up was Soul Searching by Lila Sage. I haven't read any other Lila Sage book before, so I was going into this with reading a new author. I don't typically read romance. I was just a little nervous, but I gave this 4 stars because it just felt like the right book, right time. I had so much fun with the main plot of this. We are following our main female character who is someone that sees and talks to ghosts, but suddenly the ghosts aren't communicating with her. She can still see them, but she's not able to talk with them. And that is something that she has always found comfort in since she was little. So she is coming back to her hometown under the guise of, oh, I'm helping the family shop that isn't doing too well. I'm coming to help, come to the rescue. But really, she's like panicking that she can't talk to her ghost anymore. And she has like quit her job or lost her job. Point is, Bessie doesn't have much money. And so she's actually staying with our main male character who is also new to the small town. He has, I think it's like an upholstered shop, some furniture repair type store. And so she has offered to like stay with him and help him with the store. And so that's kind of that story. You're kind of figuring out, why does he want a restart in life? Why is he coming to this small town? What's going on with our main female character and her ghost? Milo's playing with a toy. Hi. What a dork. Okay, but that was a good time and I do recommend it. Maybe during spooky season. I just had it available, so I wanted to pick it up. The next book I picked up was Save You by Mona Kastan. This is the second book in the Maxton Hall trilogy. I love the show. It is so good. And so after I finished season 2, I ended up picking up the next book. Listen, with the show, I just didn't want to be spoiled with the book because I feel like they are making subtle changes, but they're just bringing to life this book series, trilogy, whatever, so well. And I loved it. So book 1, I felt like they followed it really well. But book 2, I felt like I saw a lot more changes, and I felt like I loved the show so much more because of those changes and the more like depth we were getting with our characters. So I didn't like this one as much. I also don't rate them because I'm already going to give them like a subtly higher rating because I'm just thinking about the show and the characters and like playing it out in my head. But listen, I don't really recommend the second book if I'm honest. The last book I read in January was called The Dinner List. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I kept seeing it at Barnes & Noble, but I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. So I took a picture of it and I checked out the ebook and audio from Libby. This was such a different kind of read. You are following our main female character who shows up to her 30th birthday party And the table's full of people that were on a list she made with her friend of someone that she would want to have dinner with, kind of like one last time. And you're dealing with people that are a part of her life today that are alive, people that have died, and then of course you have the celebrity Audrey Hepburn, because why not? And so I loved all of that dynamic because you have this past present timeline, present being the dinner, and then past being kind of this romance story of kind of how we got here, but it is not this like clean cut situation. And I just loved it. I love the discussion of friendship, of romantic relationships, of careers, what's kind of the meaning of life in the sense of purpose. And then we have these different characters that are important to her, not important as in like, it's not like she had a personal relationship with Audrey Hepburn, but like you have that dynamic in there that's helping facilitate these conversations, the lighthearted ones, the deeper ones. And I just really enjoyed the discussions of like reconciling with these different parts of her life. But there was also this part that felt very heavy, at least for me, because I'm thinking of people that I would love to have one last conversation with that have already passed. And then it makes you also think about those conversations that you could have with people now that maybe you do need to just have a single conversation while they're still here. You know what I mean? So it was very thought-provoking in that way, but also like it was not a heavy book in the sense that it was a pretty short read, but it hit all the points. And so if you've been intrigued by that, I would recommend it. Just check it out from your library. The magical realism was done so well. So those were the 13 books that I read this month. That is definitely a high number for me. I don't normally read that many books. I don't know what was in the air, but I had such a good reading month. I think my average rating was like 4.22, which is really good. And I know that I can't keep up this pace every single month, but I think I did really prioritize putting my phone down every evening. At some point, once I was done with work, I was aware of the news for the day. I posted the things I wanted to post for the day. Like if I checked all the boxes, there was no reason for me to be on my phone, so I'd put it down and pick up a book, and that just felt right. And I found so many new favorites, so many new recommendations, and it got me out of my comfort zone. I just had a really good reading month. So question of the day would be, what was your top read of January? Also let me know if you've read any of these, if you got any recommendations. Always glad to hear it. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.